52 years ago, in the context of the Second World War II, Dr. Cecily Williams, a Jamaican pediatrician, described how companies employ nurses to convince the new mothers that condensed milk was a preferable substitute for their breast milk. Dr. Williams gave a lecture entitled Milk and Murder, in which he stated that misleading propaganda about infant feeding should be punished as the most wretched form of sedition. This death should be regarded as murder. Important remarks on the consequences of the unethical promotion of breast milk substitutes were made by Dr. Jalib, Michael Latham, and other notable health experts. Nevertheless, it was only until the civil society mobilized after the publication of The Baby Killer by the English organization War on Want when this important issue became public domain. Public outrage grew when Nestlé filed a lawsuit against a group of young Swiss activists who had translated and published The Baby Killer under the title Nestlé Kills Babies.
The code was won 40 years ago by people power. In 1974, exposés about deadly marketing that harm babies were published in Europe and the US. Based on these, I led an interfaith organization to file shareholder resolutions and a lawsuit challenging company practices. By 1977, we formed INFACT and started the Nestlé boycott. We mobilized hundreds of thousands of people and put 50,000 letters on Senator Kennedy's desk demanding action. He sponsored a hearing and WHO came to testify. After hours of testimony, the companies would not agree to substantial changes, so Kennedy asked WHO to take the lead.
All right, now, then my final question is what do you do, or what do you feel is your corporate responsibility to find out the extent of the use of your product in those circumstances in the developing part of the world? Do you feel that you have any responsibility?
We can't have that responsibility, sir. May I make a reference to...
You can't have that responsibility?
No.
At WHO's 1979 meeting, Anwar Fazal, Doug Johnson, Andy Chetley, and myself were official delegates.
Dr. Hafdan Mahler, then Director General of the World Health Organization, responded to the conclusions of the US Senate hearings and takes up the challenge of drafting a code in the spirit of the Alma Ata Conference.
The International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, the Code for short, was adopted by the World Health Assembly, the supreme body of the WHO, on 21 May 1981.
The U.S. was the only country in the world to vote no, which caused worldwide outrage, and IBFAN was launched on the international stage.
At the same meeting, the countries committed to implement the code through national legislation or regulations and to monitor its implementation.
IBFAN began monitoring well before the code. In 1980, we published a booklet with over 600 commercial promotion offenses in over 50 countries to show code drafters why the code needed to be detailed to stop baby food advertising, labeling, samples, and other marketing activities. The International Code Documentation Center, ICDC, trained people in monitoring and published monitoring manuals. Monitoring is important because it gives us the proof to make the code work. We held over 60 training courses all over the world, long ones and short ones, international ones, regional ones, national. More than 2,000 government officials were trained. Some 67 countries have made laws following that training.
IBFAN has concentrated on actually providing governments with the information they need in order to bring in good resolutions that actually address the new marketing strategies. The code needs to be like a vaccine, and it needs to evolve to meet the new variants. So please, let's keep this on the agenda and try and make sure that mothers and babies do not have to put up with harmful marketing of any kind.
Since the code was adopted, IBFAN has been working uninterruptedly for its implementation in more than 160 countries where its network has presence. In all these countries, IBFAN has undertaken periodic monitoring of the provisions of the original code and the subsequent World Health Assembly resolutions. The code is constantly evolving, according with the changes in publicity and marketing practices being adopted by the infant food industry,
which approved its code in 1988, and the code is important for the scope that covers products from 0 to 36 months.
Visions of the international code have been part of the Mexican legislation for years. Nevertheless, conflicts of interest inhibited their effective implementation. Today, important steps are being taken to have a strong national code which will contribute to tackle obesity and diabetes and protect infants in emergency situations.
Today, the code is a useful tool to contribute to the fight against climate change, since it protects the most sustainable form of feeding babies. IBFAN is also changing every year. More young people are joining the struggle to continue protecting babies and mothers from the ever-present greed that moves business. Its most challenging endeavor now is to raise awareness about the perils of the conflicts of interest that constantly undermine the efforts to fully implement the code at the global scale.
We are building a new generation that protects breastfeeding to save our Mother Earth. Construimos una nueva generación que protege la lactancia para salvar a nuestra Madre Tierra. 40 years of the International Code. We will continue struggling to save lives. 40 años del Código. Seguiremos luchando para salvar vidas.
Día Mundial de Protección a la Lactancia Materna.